Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and you are too. I'm sure you're watching content like this. The name of this channel is Manifesting Magic the Practical Way. There's some very practical ways to approaching magic, right? We live in a practical world, so that's just the truth of it, right? But we got to learn how to dip in and get a little bit of what we need and then pull out and not be fully a part of all the matrixy stuff that happens every day. So nonetheless, what I want to talk about today is how important it is to make a decision. Something I've gathered lately when we have no parameters on stuff that we are trying to create in our lives, we don't get those clear results that we want to receive, right? So in order to create the environments we want to have, we have to get clear on it. And getting clear on something also means making a decision, right? I've been seeing it in like comments and blogs and on people's YouTube pages and stuff like that. Whenever you find people that don't have any real personal constitution about how they live their lives, what's acceptable and what's not, what is a perfect scenario for this thing to work out for them, and then what is the best case scenario, those sort of ideas, and what doesn't really work for them and what does work for them because they've studied themselves enough to know, you get a lot of floppiness, right? And then you get a lot of people like that often get pushed around a lot. And it's because they don't have any strong ideals about what it is they don't want to be involved in. Something came to my head real quickly, right? So my partner keeps on talking about this CrossFit class he goes to in the morning. And it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, like a boot camp, and it's for 6 weeks. And he's been on and on about, you want to go? And I'm like, nah. And like at first I felt like, oh, am I turning down an opportunity to challenge myself because I'm always big on that kind of thing? And then a little while later, I was just like, no, I just don't like that kind of rough working out. I'm just not interested in it. That's why I like yoga. I like taking walks in the park. Sometimes I jog. I love strenuous yoga classes where you're holding positions, arm balances, headstands. I like the rigor in that, but it's still a more of a gentle approach to exercise. And sometimes I lift weights. Like if I don't want to do cardio, I may do something with my legs and arms. But I'm going to be very annoyed about 15 minutes in if somebody has me doing a bunch of like burpees and jumping jacks and all these things that I used to do in elementary school. I'm not interested. So what I mean is that when you have that personal constitution and you're real strict about, I made a decision on that. I don't like that kind of exercise. Then you have that. Then you also feel like, one, I know I'm not missing out on anything that I would love. I already know that. I'm good with that. I'm good with it. And then also, two, I don't feel any kind of way because I've already made a decision about what I'm not going to entertain. And I find that with so many parameters and so many boundaries broken right now in society, I wouldn't even say broken. I mean, they're just wide open. You don't have to choose anything almost. For the most part, you can just be like, oh, I'm just free there. I'm free there. Oh, I'm just free over there. Watch the level of chaos that spins around in a person's lives who don't have a lot of decisions being made, because it's not like the decisions are not going to be made. They're just not made by you. They're made by someone else with a stronger constitution, and then you're pulled in someone else's scenario. I remember my brother used to say a long time ago, when he was married, he was like, whoever have the strongest energy is the one that usually wins everything. And in a marriage and relationship. And I was like, that's kind of true. He was like, yeah, whoever's the person that's the most driven, who has the strongest ideas and the strongest constitutions about what it is they want to do in life, they generally bulldoze over the other person. And this can be good in some cases where there's an area where one person lacks and the other person shines. But if another person isn't willing to relinquish that control, but they don't really have a decision made about what they want to do in the next year, whether or not they want to buy a house, whether or not they want to move from one state to the next or whatever kind of thing, and this other person has got a whole 10-year plan happening, then you find that the importance of being a person that makes some sort of decision so that you don't get whipped up in the chaos of other people's decisions, right? And this is so common, especially in relationships, but especially in friendships and lives, right? my daughter was telling me that, at school sometimes when people have, they're like, let's do this for lunch, let's do that for lunch. And she's like, I didn't want to do any of that, right? And I was like, what did you prefer to do? I don't know, but I just didn't want to do that. And I'm like, well, that's why you got swooped into doing the other thing. I was like, because you don't have any really specific ideas or boundaries, or you didn't make a decision about what it is that you wanted to entertain that day. So what someone else saw was an empty vessel that was willing to move and do what they wanted them to do. And they just swept you up into their plans. And that happens a lot. I did it in my first marriage all the time because I was the one that had all these specific ideas about what needed to be done and how, especially after having children. I was like, oh yeah, we got to live like this. We got to do this, take care of this. I had these really specific ideas. But the person I was with didn't. So it always seemed like I was like pushing and pulling someone into what I had going on. And it doesn't work for the person. So just on the aspect of the person who doesn't make the decision, it's kind of like, think of a garden and think of having beautiful flowers in the garden. And like, if you don't put down some type of boundary or protection from the soil and the weeds that are going to grow, or like some type of a fertilizer that kills weeds or something like that, the weeds are going to overtake the garden. So it's not that leaving it alone is going to be a good decision, because that only works when there's no other more powerful force that's going to come in contact with it. But weeds are a much more powerful force than beautiful flowers in most gardens, right? So just by not acknowledging the weeds and only trying to focus on the flowers, it doesn't stop the weeds from overtaking the garden. And that's something I've been guilty of in many cases, because I mentioned this before, but I'm sure it probably wasn't more recently. About 2 years ago, everything came to a standstill from me. All of my moving and shaking and forcing and trying to get things done and maneuvering over here and trying to figure this out. It really failed me. And I really was forced to keep still. I was like, nothing I'm trying to do is working right now. So I just have to keep still, right? And so during that time, all of my vision boards and my journals and personal constitutions about who I wanted to be and where I wanted to live and all that stuff, I kind of put it aside because I was like, this isn't working. It's more frustrating than anything. And then so I kind of got this really a relaxed approach to life. Now I was enjoying it. It was perfectly fine. But what I find is that when you come in contact with someone like my current partner, he's much more deliberate in a lot of things. And I found myself always feeling like I was swooped up into something because I just didn't have a decision made about that. I'm like, well, I don't know. Go with the flow. I don't know what I want to do. And it works really good sometimes. But just know that in not choosing to make a decision, you're also choosing to be swept up into something else that you may not necessarily want to do or have boundaries for. And that's just how it works, right? When we make a decision about things, it's like it clears out the chaos. There's no room for chaos. Pay attention to people. If you're around environments where people have not made a decision about basic aspects of who they are, like I date people like this. I go to environments like these to hang out. I want a job or position like this. I create businesses like this. My projects are only meant for this. Watch the amount of chaos and indecisiveness that ensues in the person's environment. And so like a long time ago, I decided that I never wanted to write as a full-time career for anyone else, because writing is something that's extremely special to me. And while I've been off the block right now when it comes to writing, I think I'm just digesting, finishing dissertations and all that kind of stuff. And I haven't gotten back into the space of using my writing for myself because it's been for other people for the past few years. And I've done a whole lot of academic writing. So my goal now is to nurture the projects that I've already created. So I also have a new audiobook. I'm gonna have to make a little YouTube commercial for it. My book, White Spaces, it's a literary fiction, race, dating, white, and otherness. I wrote it a few years ago, right? It's a sociological book. And I just got to the point where I created an audiobook for it. So now it's on Audible. But I mean, it's a beautiful project. So I'm nurturing those projects. But in my mind, my heart of hearts, I know good and well, I can't be swept into writing for a living. I would never want to do that. It would completely diminish the enjoyment I get out of actually writing, right? So there's nobody that can come around and swoop into my space and make me feel like I'm losing something or I'm not getting something, because I'm deciding not to write for a company. I turned down a position about a month ago for technical writing. I was like, I don't want to spend my time writing for other people. If I write, it's for me, right? So that's something that I've settled on. I'm done with that, right? So you have to remember that when you don't make decisions, then you're always flopping around about what you allow in your space and what you don't allow in your space, right? And it creates drama. Another thing about making decisions and the importance of it and not allowing the chaos to take over is with children and like, I guess you'll call it leadership aspects, right? I was telling someone else this semester, this is my last shebang when it comes to teaching for a while because I accepted a position somewhere else at another university, but this is my last teaching for a while in a really specific way of teaching students. And so I was being very lenient all this semester with what they can turn in and how late it can be and the grading things that come in late. But what I tell you, it created chaos. Chaos. And I'm like, okay, now I see why I don't do this and why I see other instructors are so strict on it. I don't do it. But the fact that I opened the door so wide to not making a decision on whether late work could be turned in, whether there would be points taken off and all this sort of stuff, it ensued chaos. I'm answering 5-6 emails a day about, what about this when I turned it in late? Well, I get credit for constant barrage of, I graduate, I can't fail this class. Constant barrage of these emails, and so I got something to work on right now. And I'm just like, man, you make so much work for yourself with the cleanup in life when you don't make a decision early on about how things are gonna work out. Right now, it's okay. The class ends Thursday. I'm not starting something new until Wednesdays. I mean, it's ending fine. It doesn't kill me, but it's so true. And this is the last example that I have. So me and my partner, we go to the park all the time and we, what is it called? We run, like he runs, I like to walk. I might run and walk, but I don't really care for the whole nonstop jogging. I've done it several times with him. We used to run together all the time back in, we lived in Dallas and stuff like that. And so I'm okay with it, but it's really just not my jam. I really just don't enjoy the feeling of running. Like it disrupts my smooth energy for the most part, right? And so we go to the park. It's so funny that we go there and we go 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whatever. And then we do this and we go to opposite. So we'll see each other on the other side of the track and wave. And then we meet each other at the front again. And so, but I remember early on feeling aggravated and a little bit agitated all the time. Every time it was just like, you want to go out? And I was like, if I go with him, I might have to run. I don't want to run. I don't feel like running. Sometimes I did though. But I remember thinking like, you need to make a constitution about that. You need to make a decision. Do you want to run with or not? So I go ahead and bypass the company of being able to walk because we got headphones on anyway. We're not even communicating and just letting myself be okay with, girl, you don't want to run. It's okay. You don't have to. You good. And so I don't feel any type of way when I go, and I'm sure he doesn't either. And we just go pew in the other direction. And sometimes I'll get halfway through and be like, I feel like running, but I don't want anybody else to be with me going to the beat of my drum. I'm like, do your own thing, right? So you just have to remember that it also cleans up any negative feelings you have towards people or an environment. When you decide, okay, I'm not going to entertain that. One of my things is I'm not going to work with family on, specific. I don't like working with family, like to do work and jobs and serious things. They're beautiful people to hang out with. And I'm sure they feel the same about me. We like to work out and hang out and do things. But for me, there's a certain part of me that turns on when I'm working on something. And I don't like to mix that with family energy. That's just how it's always been. I mean, and I never really practiced it, but now I practice it, and it's made my life a lot cleaner and easier. And also this is another thing, when you realize what people are for, you can have much better relationships with them. So sometimes, especially women, we get into relationships, or men too sometimes, and try to make the person this everything for us, when really it's because we haven't made a decision on what role is this person specifically playing in my life. And then that way you're not pushing and pulling and trying to make them fit into some type of role that they're not even built for, right? So I already know that if I have certain things, I bring them to family members or brother or whatever like that. And then other things, I know that's what my mate is for. And it's no different love. It's still deep love for everybody, right? But it's just that you have to know, what is the role of this person in my space? We have to do this with our parents eventually, I think, that make a decision on that. It's like, hey, they may not ever come to the point where they understand really specific things about what affected me in my childhood. Is it even important? No, it's just not. So you have to decide they're there to love. They're there for respect. They're there to show my unconditional appreciation for what they did for me in my first half of my life, right? That is what it's for. And they're not there for your spiritual guidance all the time. Sometimes if you get it, then you be grateful. They're not there for your intellectual guidance. If you get it, be grateful. But that's not always the case, right? And sometimes they take you as far as they can go, and then you have to go seek other places. So just making a decision about who you are, what you want, and what's not acceptable to you in a lot of environments will save you so much trouble when it comes to chaos and drama ensuing everywhere you go. And then you won't feel pulled and pushed around by everything in every environment because you've made a decision on it already, right? Anyway, I hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful day. Happy Monday. And happy Monday. And until next time, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And talk to you guys later.